Prairie Lake Church, I'm glad to be here. How about you? That's pretty good. Not as good as the original, I understand, but I'm doing my best. Hey, welcome all of you to Prairie Lake Church. And listen, okay? If this is your first weekend with us and there seems to be, wherever you're at, some nervous excitement in the room, it might be because we're experiencing something this weekend that's brand new and a little bit different. And here's what's going on right now in real time. We are broadcasting live across all of our campuses. So what you're hearing right now in Cedar Falls, you're hearing in Osage, and you're hearing in Grinnell, and you're hearing in New Hampton, you're hearing in Fort Dodge, and you're hearing in Independence, and you're hearing in Decorah. I think that's it. We are so nervous that we missed one, but we did. So welcome, okay? We're glad that you are all here. Yeah. So listen, here's what I thought we'd do with all of us kind of quote unquote in the room together this morning. I thought it'd be cool just to give you, everybody, just a picture of maybe a visual of what happens every single Sunday at Prairie Lake. So we've got 7 campuses, okay? 7 locations in northeastern and central Iowa. So if we pulled up a map of our state, okay, and we just looked at this map, and let's just say we looked at this map and we plotted where our campuses all are, okay? So let's put those on the map now, all right? So there's all 7 of them, okay? And then let's do this. Let's imagine circles that are like, I don't know, like a 30-minute drive, okay? So a 20-mile radius, 30-minute drive, and these circles kind of represent just how far people are usually willing to drive to come to church, okay? So there it is, right? Now here's the question I'm going to ask and I'm going to answer for you. Here's the question. What would you guess is the amount of Iowans that are within earshot of our campus, so to speak? In other words, how many people are living in those circles? Here's the number, okay? Here it is. Yeah, I don't know what it was like in your room, but here where I'm at, it was like, oh, yeah. It is unbelievable what God is really able to do and reach through Prairie Lake Church every single weekend. 446,000 Iowans. Now, that number gets even higher with the magic of the internet, right? Because I mentioned all of our campuses, but hundreds of you are joining online right now throughout our state and beyond every single weekend. But just in terms of Prairie Lake Church campuses, I mean, communities where we have people who can invite people, right? Invite their little Iowa, their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, their family members, people that you've unloaded the marching band trailer with 8 times as you've watched the same marching band show 8 times, for example. Just a crazy amount of potential kingdom impact across our state every single weekend. And this is our reality every weekend. This is what God's up to through Prairie Lake Church. We are a multi-site church who wants to reach Iowa with no matter churches and no matter followers of Jesus. That's who we are every single weekend. And not too many other churches in Iowa get the chance to wake up with that same mission, vision, and potential, and it's just, I don't know, it's humbling. It really is. It's humbling and it's exciting, and I would say it's worth sacrificing for. Really. Because why? Because there's more communities in Iowa that need that kind of church and those kinds of people. I'm not trying to just pile on here, but I want to throw one more number at you. 182 people have crossed the line of faith and started following Jesus at Prairie Lake Church campuses this year alone. And I just want to be super clear. That's not something that we just go like, look at what we did. Because we can't save anybody. Tried. Can't. Okay? God's doing that. That's the kind of church that only God could have imagined. We just celebrated baptisms last week. Around 40 or so of us across Iowa got on stage and got dunked, and we celebrated you. And so that means you know some of the names and some of the faces and some of the stories behind every one of those people. I crossed the faith line when, you know? Not to completely switch gears here, but I'm not sure how you're feeling about last Tuesday, okay? I'm guessing it's some of us are elated and some of us are the opposite of that. Here's what we know for sure, okay? We know we're going to have a different face in the Oval Office for the next 4 years, and we're going to have the same king for the next 4, just like we did for the last 2,000. And he's moving. His mission hasn't changed, and it won't. The risen Jesus is still finding people. He's still saving people. He's still drawing people to God in Iowa, you know, through his church, Prairie Lakes, okay? But all that to say, okay, it's cool, and it was not easy. It wasn't easy becoming a church of 7 locations, and it won't be easy to become a church of 10 or 12 or however many it takes to reach our state, which is why I really enjoy taking that journey that we took through Acts. Because when you read the story of let's call it the original multi-site church, right? Paul traveling around and starting churches in Corinth and Galatia and Ephesus and Colossae and Philippi and Thessalonica, all these places, you know. I mean, it sounds awesome. And we read through the book of Acts, and God just did some amazing, miraculous, incredible things in those churches and in those people, but also, take a look at how Paul describes, at least to the church he planted in Corinth. Take a look at how he describes it. How it felt from his end at times. He says, I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from the Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, in danger from false believers. And he continues by saying this, I've labored and I've toiled and I've often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and often gone without food. I've been cold and naked. And besides all of that, besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches, right? Turns out, trying to grow a church in multiple locations, even when you're doing it because Jesus knocked you off your donkey and told you to do it, which is Paul's story, even then, it doesn't come without its challenge, and it doesn't happen without someone or a group of someone's being willing to pay the cost of that. But isn't it funny, okay? The cost of something, you know? The pain of the sacrifice, the burden of just not knowing if it's all going to work out or if it's all going to be worth it. The cost, that's not what usually makes the headlines, okay? That's never the lead. The cost is never the lead, right? I mean, Army recruitment videos don't show the drill sergeant screaming at the 18-year-old kid and then him curling up in the barracks on his first night away from home. Not what makes the commercial, right? What makes the commercial is, you know, someone piloting drones with like the latest tech or parachuting safely to the ground with their fellow soldiers on either side's courage and just doing amazing things that matter for the safety and security of our world. That is a great commercial, okay? That's going to get the kind of response. In fact, Paul probably could have used a little coaching from the Army marketing team for this letter. Because, man, Paul, who's signing up for that? Cold and naked for Jesus. Anybody? Here's the question I would love for us to kind of wrestle with just for a second, okay? Why is Paul doing something here that most of us as Iowans are kind of uncomfortable with? Why is he airing his dirty laundry? You know? Why is he so uncomfortably upfront about the hardships that he's facing? Well, here's why. Because there were people, and this is Corinth, remember? This is a real church. There were people in Corinth, these so-called super apostles, who claimed that life with Jesus should look more like victory than it does defeat. Life with Jesus should look more like success than struggle. Life with Jesus should make us not just better, but he should make us better off. That was the gospel that was starting to circulate. I mean, it was something to the effect of, hey, yeah, Paul started all these churches, he performed all these miracles, thousands of people came to know Jesus, yeah, all that's cool. But have you seen what he wears on the weekend? Oh my word. Because look, he just looks disheveled, and why is he always getting himself into trouble? He's always saying things that people don't like. Doesn't he know that you can catch more flies with honey and vinegar? Like, this guy just doesn't understand how things grow. The guy who started the global church doesn't understand how things grow and what attracts people. And we got to do something about this, because if we don't, you know what our biggest barrier to growth is? It's going to be Paul. That's what started to circulate. And Paul understands it. And so he's going to be crystal clear in his letter. Basically, what he's going to say is, hey, if you want a life that is fruitful, meaning a life where Jesus is multiplied in you and through you, it's not going to look like some of the other success stories that you're so often familiar with, that so often get elevated in the world we live in. It's not going to look like those. Look at what Paul says earlier in the same letter, okay? This is from chapter 10, and that's in that second letter to the Corinthians. Here's what he says. He says, we don't dare classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. We're not in the comparison game, okay? When they measure themselves by themselves and they compare themselves with themselves, they're not wise. That's not a wise thing to do. He goes on to say, we, however, will not boast beyond proper limits, but we're going to confine our boasting to the sphere of service God himself has assigned to us. A sphere, by the way, that also includes you. If we were to summarize what Paul's saying here, here's what we would say. If you want to win attention and admiration, then make yourself stand out. If that's what you're after. So it's a very effective way to do that. But if you want to win hearts, if you want to win people, at least the part of them that matters the most, make yourself a servant. Just this past week, a couple of pastors came out from Denver, Colorado. Pastors that Pastor John and I both know. And they came out to talk with us about succession. They're kind of where we were a few years ago, just kind of sensing that something was on the horizon. And we had a great time with them. We really did. Just kind of sharing about how what we learned and what God did and what worked and what didn't, what we do differently. Just a really good day together, okay? But it was interesting, okay, because here's how they started the day, okay? They said, hey, before you tell us all this succession-related stuff, before you tell us that story, tell us the story of the church. Tell us the story of Prairie Lakes. And it's a story we've told a million times. I've heard Pastor John tell it a million times. I've told it maybe 500,000 times at this point now. And while there's a few variations in this story, it's essentially the same, okay? And by the way, the story that I'm going to tell you, because my story is from Cedar Falls campus. This same story is played out at now 6 different locations. It played out on a bus from Osage, or White Tents in Decorah, or Bills in Independence, or, I mean, every single one of our campuses, every single one of us has this story. I just want to share what mine was. It started back in 1998, which I was also informed today that was before people who were serving this weekend were born, which is fun. Good times. 1998, okay? We were a 150-year-old Baptist church. This church had faithfully worshipped, First Baptist Church faithfully worshipped in the corner of 7th and Main, Cedar Falls, downtown, okay? But for a while, the church had declined and was without a pastor, and there was some serious discussion at that time going on about maybe selling the church to the big Catholic parish across the street. But here's the thing. There was this small group of people, First Baptist Church in Cedar Falls, Iowa, this small group of people who just gathered and prayed, and they just felt like God wasn't done with them. They genuinely believed that God was saying, listen, I'm not done, and I still want you guys reaching out to reach people in the name of Jesus. You just didn't know how that was going to work. So what they did is they began a search for another pastor rather than selling, and they interviewed this 38-year-old associate pastor from Forest City, Iowa, John Fuller, okay? And they just told him what they felt God was calling him to do, and then 7 campuses overnight. Obviously not how the story goes, right? But so transport back to the present. We're telling this story to these 2 pastors in my living room, and they were trying to piece together the timeline, okay? Because they were like, well, so when did you come again, John? John, 1998. Looked at me, Jesse, when did you come? 1999. 1999. I was 18. I was a freshman, incoming freshman to UNI, and I grew up in church, and I ran the soundboard at my old church, and so that's what I was doing with my new church. I was running the soundboard. And what this did was it put me in proximity, put me close to something that, that many churches were wrestling with in 1999. Some of you will remember the worship wars of 1999. It's a good time to be in church, worship wars. We were running 2 different kinds of services back then. We were running a traditional service, and we were running a blended service. The traditional service had organ only. Blended had a little bit of instruments and kind of like a little bit more modern music, you know. And these were the days in which here's what we would do as volunteers. We'd pile into Pastor John's office. He'd get us all in there, crammed in there, and he'd give us a pep talk before the first service, and then he'd give us the same pep talk before the second service. I still remember this 25 years ago. Pep talk was essentially the same. He'd very clearly say, hey, we're not here for anybody but Jesus. So don't worry about what the response is going to be or not be. It doesn't matter. You're here to serve him. And that's when this church was growing like crazy. We went from 150 to 250 to 5 to 7 to, I mean, we were growing fast. Same time I felt this call to vocational ministry, but it was the same time that lots of people left. And they left vocally. A lot of them did. Because they didn't like the drums or the lights or the volume, or we didn't do Sunday school anymore. Or, I mean, fill in the blank, right? After I got this call to ministry, but before I left for seminary, I became not just a volunteer at this church, became a paid staffer. I was pastoring high school students. And still at this First Baptist Church, we met in the basement of this old Baptist church. And whatever you imagine this basement looking like and smelling like, you are right. Okay? There's a group of us. I was pastoring these high school students. We were growing. There's another guy pastoring middle school students. They were growing. And these middle school students, of course, super loud, right? And so, we had to figure this out. And so we had these dividers. I'm not sure where we got them from. Probably like a school in the 1930s, I think. But they had rollers on, but they didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. And so we had to supplement those with refrigerator boxes, the cardboard refrigerator boxes, right? Because they would reach all the way up. And we just made it work. I had a front row seat to the time of some of the most incredible and exponential growth at our church. And I'll be the first to tell you, it was not a well-oiled machine full of people who just had figured out work-life balance, okay? It was more of a happy disaster of people just trying to be faithful and just trying to keep up with what God was doing. We just didn't want to get in the way. Our mantra back then wasn't no matter. Our mantra was pointing people to God. Pointing people to God. What are we doing? We're all pointers. There's nothing real clever or real inspiring about that, but it was true. Because in the midst of this overcrowded church basement, cardboard dividers, worship wars, we were so singularly focused on what Jesus was doing. What he was unmistakably doing in the lives of people. I know the story's gotten long. I appreciate your grace with me telling it. Just let me finish this walk down memory lane here, okay? Like I said, back in those years, I was a college student. And as I got closer to graduating, we grew to the point where we needed not just a 9 a.m. and a 10:30, we needed a Saturday night service. And so we did. And this little Baptist church had a gym, and off the gym was a kitchen, full kitchen. And what they would do on Saturday nights was they would serve what still is my favorite pizza, which is Godfather's Pizza, and it is what it is. Come at me, bro. I don't care. But they set up tables in the gym, right, for us to eat before we would go worship together. And then for finals week, as a college student, they had this final study week. So essentially what they would do is they opened the church up until the wee hours of the morning for students to come in and grab snacks and act like they were studying. And there's a few reasons that those memories are still etched in my mind. They're fond memories, of course. They were really great ways to serve and engage college students like I was. But why I remember them now is this. The same faces who were on the other side of that pass-through handing me my favorite pizza on a Saturday night were the same faces who at that time they had little kids, but they were up way past their bedtime on final study nights. Same faces. And they were the same faces who interviewed that 38-year-old associate from Forest City. And they were the same faces who gathered to pray about the future of First Baptist, now Prairie Lakes Church. And they're the same faces that I saw walk in the doors this morning at Prairie Lakes Church, Cedar Falls. These people were, to me, and my story, what Paul was to the people in Corinth when he wrote this to them, okay? Same letter. He says, "Now I'm ready to visit you for the third time, and I will not be a burden to you because what I want is not your possessions, but you." After all, children don't have to save up for their parents, but parents save up for their children. So I will very gladly spend for you everything I have and expend myself as well. And if I love you more, even if you love me less, be that as it may, I'm not going to be a burden to you. These faces not only gave without an expectation of return, they gave at times even when what they got in return wasn't great. But they gave anyways. Because they weren't after something that I could offer, they were after me. Because Jesus was after me. Not so that they might win admiration for themselves, not so they're trying to find some sort of personal fulfillment, just so that they might win someone's heart for Jesus. I mean, it's the same spirit that they had that caused the same church in 2005 to build a brand new church building that prioritized kids' spaces over adult Sunday school. Same spirit that caused us in 2008 to stop trying to expand this big church in Cedar Falls, but instead launch churches across Iowa. That's why we launched a campus in Waterloo and another in Osage in 2010, and Grinnell in 2012, and Fort Dodge in 2014, and New Hampton in 2015, Cedar Rapids in 17, Independence in 19, Decorah in 2021. And now, friends, here's where we are, okay? We have more people worshiping across Iowa than we do where we began in Cedar Falls. more PLCers are worshiping outside of Cedar Falls than in. All because a small group of people gathered to pray, but not only that, okay? They listened to what God was saying, but not only that, they gladly, joyfully spent their lives for the sake of others. To the point where now, in a single year, we saw God adopt more people into the family than were in the seats back in 1998. I often wish, seriously, I could just transport everybody back to that time so you could see what I saw and experience what I experienced. But as I was writing this, I did feel God go you're missing the point. You're missing the point. Because the truth is this, you don't have to go back to some other time with some other people in order to experience that. You can experience it now for yourself, here and now. We really can. It just requires you to make this same decision, the same decision Paul made for the sake of the churches, same decision this small group of people in that little Baptist church made. Same decisions that a feisty group of leaders in Decorah are making right now. As you now have gone months without a campus pastor and watched God send 44% more people to you on Sundays. Or a faithful group of people right now in Osage are seeing, where because of their giving and because they've managed expenses, Osage is going to contribute to the mission across Iowa significantly this year. Same spirit that animates the staff level volunteers in Fort Dodge and Independence and Grinnell and New Hampton every single weekend when you lead ministries and people. What I'm trying to say is any one of us can experience what I'm describing when we make the same decision that so many at Prairie Lakes and beyond have made, and that's this. Just decide that it's not going to be about you. Just decide that. Decide that your time isn't 100% your own, that your money's not 100% your own, that your focus, your attention, your priorities are not your own. Decide that. And then decide that, it's going to be about Jesus and what he wants from me and where he sends me. Which means spending your life for the sake of others by just taking some more ownership in the place and the space that God created to serve others, and that is his church. Listen, church is by no means the only place that you can serve for the sake of God's kingdom. I'm not trying to say that. I am saying it's easy for us. It's easy for us to diminish the significance of what God does when we serve in his church every single weekend. The stories, the people, the grace that he extends when he grabs people through other people through his church is incredible. I've witnessed him. I am a product of that, and I've witnessed him do that for my entire life. And he does it when we decide that we're going to give him some space and we're going to make it about what Jesus wants before it's about what we want. So we're going to as we kind of close our service down or move to its close, we're going to invite you to do this in a couple of concrete ways. So what I want to do is just maybe pray us to that end, okay? Let's pray. Let's pray together across Iowa. Father in heaven, thank you so much for your church. God, it's your church before it's ours, for sure. Thanks for how you're using it, using us. And God, if we need to make a decision here, go a little bit different direction, would you open up our imaginations to what you can do in us and through us as we do. So, Jesus, I pray all of this in your name. Amen.